What is up, everybody? It's Dr. Vibe here, host and producer of the award-winning Dr. Vibe show, the home of Epic Conversations, and I'm the host of Epic Conversations 2020, Best Podcast News Award winner, 2018 Innovation Award winner, given out by the Canadian Ethnic Media Association. I also co-host and co-produce the only online show in the world for dads and fathers. It's sponsored by Dove Men Plus Care. And as always, I like to say you're blessed, highly favored, a magnet for miracles, and a solution for someone's problem. And some housekeeping rules before we get started. Please follow the Dr. Vibe show on YouTube and hit the notification button so you get notified. And then also follow the Dr. Vibe show on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram. Also, if you want to advertise on any of the platforms that I host, email me. Email address is right there for those who are watching. If you're listening, it's dr.vibe at the drvibeshow.com. And also continue our conversations in between epic conversations what we have on the Discord group. Primetime Saturday Discord group with Aisha and LaLa. Email me again, dr.vibe at the drvibeshow.com. And let's bring to the stage Aisha K. Staggers and LaLa Key. What is going on? Oh, yeah, I did. Yeah. Sorry, I didn't put that up. My mistake. Please forgive moi. What's going on, ladies?
Yeah.
Okay.
So much.
So you like the new music, and LaLa, you like that too?
I do.
Well, just trying to keep things evolving and moving along, just want to keep it moving along.
Fresh.
Yeah, well, and we got a different background tonight.
I know, and it's nice. I love it.
So there we go. There you go.
New things going on.
We're evolving. How was everybody's week?
Good. It was pretty relaxing, the usual nonsense, and
we'll get to that. I just want to talk about the highlights, not the questionable likes.
Yeah. My daughter's birthday was yesterday. She turned 21.
Happy belated.
So now there are no more babies, just adults. I know. Well, we haven't tested the waters yet. We'll see. The next time I have to send her in to go get a bottle of wine for me because I don't feel like getting out the car. Look, I've been waiting for this all year, right?
OMG. Well, that's hilarious. What's going on in your world, LaLa?
Oh, a little bit of this, a little bit of that, but it's all good things. It's really interesting to kind of learn about our world and being in another part of the world part of the time. So you learn about how not just what we see in America, but we also see how other parts of the world see us. And it's really interesting to be able to grow and see and communicate with other people and get outside of our own world to see how the world is also seeing their part of the world.
Yeah,
absolutely. One thing we want to talk about, we're broadcasting live on November 11th, and in the US, it's Veterans Day. In Canada, it's Remembrance Day. Anyone would like to say a few words on today's date of significance?
Just
definitely.
Really,
I don't know what we would do without you. Honestly, you're doing something that for me wasn't really an option. I never saw myself being in the military, but I watched my sister leave and grow and was in the military, and she saw the world. She introduced me to so many things like good food and how to be a good world citizen. But it's the families as well as the veterans who I want to make sure that we talk about today, because the families do sacrifice for our country. And I am grateful for you. And I thank you for your service, whether you served in the past, whether someone in your life has passed serving. You are the gold of our country. So thank you.
Yes, and as the world is in so many different conflicts, and our our soldiers are called all across the world to help, whether it's to mediate conflicts or to even do just humanitarian service. Because people forget that a lot of the time they're doing humanitarian service that some of these countries need, and they need our assistance to do it. And they're also protecting our citizens overseas as well. And so they do a great service. And I just hope that we as a country learn to do better service to them. Our veterans shouldn't be struggling for healthcare. They shouldn't be struggling
Mm,
for food. They shouldn't be struggling for through homelessness or mental health issues. We should revere them and appreciate them the same way that we should be revering and appreciating our elders and our elderly. Because remember, there are veterans who are still living, who have gone through a number of our wars and conflicts. And think about my grandfather, for example, was in Korea. But he came back to a segregated country. So they not only sacrificed a whole lot overseas, but then a lot sacrificed when they came home. Vietnam veterans, for example, coming home with addiction, coming home to homelessness, not being appreciated. So I think that we need to start doing better service to our people who are in service.
wow. It's interesting that how well, and also to tip my hat to those who serve, how much the military has helped Black people advance with education, all these services that it provides, like for giving their country themselves to their country. A lot of Black people wouldn't be where they are if it wasn't for military service.
Yeah, and there are a lot of Black men, our age, and some younger, who had the option, jail or military,
Yep.
and joining the military really changed their lives around. And it offered a kind of discipline that they couldn't get. They weren't getting at home, or they couldn't get in their neighborhoods, but it also gave them a chance to grow and expand their horizons. So I'm very thankful for that opportunity, for those people who were able to make something of themselves, because the other path could have been worse.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Very, very much so. So, hail to our veterans, those past, present, and future. Because the
Correct.
way the world's going, there's gonna be, and that's actually another story we can maybe
Right.
talk in the future about. I know I was reading a while back, or we may have discussed it on the platform, that how many young people today, if they had to enroll to the
Will
military,
not.
are not in the physical shape to pass
Well,
the
not just the
test.
physical shape, but I think in the United States, the reason, one of the reasons that the numbers of people joining the military have declined since 2001 is because we've been doing endless wars for a long time. I mean, the Afghanistan conflict, being in Iraq, and all of that, Afghanistan lasted 20 years.
Yeah,
So
it's a
it's
long
one of those
time.
things, and when people callously say, oh, well, we have the draft. Well, I have a nephew who's of the age who would be drafted. And we think about that, we take for granted that there is that, but they see what's going on with Tuberville not getting the promotions. So those things are happening. We see that again, how they treated, how our Congress treated our own veterans,
Yes.
who were in Afghanistan, and not wanting to pass their health care, and the things for their families. So there aren't any real incentives anymore for
No.
people to join. The GI Bill, they're pretty much trying to gut that. So
Yes.
just the incentives that were once there for people to, if you're going to ask people to give up something, you have to be there to supply something, a reason, a motivation for them to want to take a bullet for a country that
Mm,
really just, is at this point being ungrateful.
Mhm.
absolutely. Anything you want to add, LaLa?
No, Aisha said it all. I wish our government would They want you to fight. They make it so that you be proud, be this and do this, but then yet they come back and they face the hardships that they do when they should not. And I think our government needs to step up and be more honorable to our veterans and to give them the support that they need because they have put their lives and their mental on the online as well. Many come back and still need to deal with the effects of what they have seen outside of our borders.
Right.
Okay, so before we go further, want to say shout out to you. Hello, Jen Myers. How you doing, Jen Myers? Also, green-eyed baby. So true. We have let our veterans down. To be a rich country, we are horrible to our veterans.
Horrible.
Yeah, and Fitness IQ Cam goes evening. Okay, so I know we got a lot of things to share about tonight, but also Green Eyed wants us to quickly talk about the subject. So I thought we'd bring it up because I wasn't aware about this. Can we talk about Sarah Huckabee's latest scandals? She's been caught paying a fictitious company $1,400 a month in a restaurant, $65,000 for food for a rally.
The Donald Trump grift doesn't fall very far from the tree. Let's just remember who her former boss is. And this is like capital A+ Republican MAGA crazy, right? So there's the whole thing with her paying, what was it, $95,000 or $20,000, whatever, for a lectern for her to stand in front of when they had a perfectly good one for the last governor that wasn't that old, and she's hiding the paperwork behind that. She's on this rampage about this wanting a 6-week abortion ban. She's on this thing about wanting to ban CRT in schools, which is just not a thing in K through 12 education. She signed a law saying that Latinx couldn't be used by the state government and banning books and all this other stuff, but she doesn't want to be held accountable for the stuff that she's doing. This thing about her paying this fraudulent company $1,400 a month. If I'm not mistaken, and I read this correctly, the company is somehow owned by a friend of hers.
Oh boy!
It literally,
oh boy!
it reeks of money laundering. And then the $65,000 for food at a rally. That's cool if you're going to pay that out of your own campaign funds, but don't take that from state government funds that taxpayers are paying their dollars for, because you cannot do that. That is illegal. That is against campaign finance laws. And and look, you know who's going to learn that lesson? It's something I want you to all to keep an eye on next week, in the coming weeks. Eric Adams, mayor of New York, who I cannot stand, he's learning that lesson too about campaign finance. Look, the campaign finance laws might seem very, very, very vague, but there are some very concrete things that you can and cannot do. And you can use campaign finances for things, but there are things in the state code when you work for a state that you cannot spend money on. And political activities, and I used to work for 2 state governments. Political activities are not something that you can use state funds for. And whose rally was it? It was a rally for her legislature or special election or what have you. And then where was Sarah Sanders on Wednesday? Oh, she was up at the Trump rally with Donald Trump and Roseanne Barr up there saying BS for a stream of 20 minutes. So you know what? Arkansas, get it together. You elected Governor Orville Faubus in the 50s, and you elected his dead carcass reincarnated as Sarah Sanders in 2022. You get what you deserve, okay? Vote better next time. Vote better and put forth better candidates.
Okay. Green Eyed says also she wants to ban public access to government records also.
And she will lose that in the Supreme Court. She will lose that
to stop her abuse being found out.
Oh yeah, she'll lose that in the Supreme Court. Why? Because as anything that the public has a vested interest in paying money for, one, it's transparent. Like in South Carolina, I couldn't stop having my salary every year blasted in the newspaper, but that's because the state law said if you made over $50,000 a year, that was their accountability. It was like several pages of the newspaper, everybody and what they made. But here's the other part of it too. We have the Freedom of Information Act. Okay. That she's not going to get around because that's a federal law. That's not a state law. So newspapers, journalists are going to sue the hell out of her. And the reason, it's not that she doesn't want the public to have access to government records. She doesn't want those journalists in Arkansas that are holding her accountable to have access to the records, because they had been FOAIing her from here to Kalamazoo. Okay. Just off, firing off these papers saying, hey, we want access to this, we want access to that. And she can't get favorable press anymore. But here's the thing. When you do dirt, expect your dirt to start coming out from under that rug at some point. Okay? It's gonna happen. And you know what? She lied to us for 4 years.
Multiple times.
It's what she deserves. It's what she deserves. And here's the thing. The problem is you can't lie like as governor the way that you tried to lie as Donald Trump's press secretary.
That's right. It's a totally different ballgame.
Right. Because not only Donald Trump appointed you, you were hired. These people voted you in. They will vote you out.
They sure will.
Well, family, do you think we've already got a good appetizer? I think.
Oh, yes,
I think we're warmed up.
Sorry, Daddy can't save you now.
No.
Oh my goodness! All right, I'm gonna put Aisha made this comment on YouTube. I want to get everyone's feedback on this because I think we have a tagline for Primetime Saturdays.
I left out the second all in all, but yeah.
When she goes to the all new primetime where we make sense of the news and nonsense in the U.S. What do you like? I like that as a tagline. Do you like that?
I do too. I love that.
Where we make sense. Okay, so we're gonna, as we adjust the branding. I think that Aisha did. By the way, if you watch the beginning, she made the overlay, family. So you got to bow. So somehow we got to get where we make sense of the news and nonsense in the U.S. as part of that.
Yeah, I was going to put that there, but there's space, so I will add that.
All right, wonderful. I think that is wonderful. I think that's great tagline. And Green Eyed says, yes. So we got to vote in. Yes, fantastic. Low, yes. Right. So this,
and if you want to vote in and you want to have more of a say and also suggest some topics early
Discord
for us to review, join the Discord. Join the Discord. Yes. That's where it all goes down.
Yeah, because actually
it's been hot and heavy this week.
I actually got an email from Cinnamon Canella. Mm-hmm. She asked me some questions and then I just answered her back on Discord. And it was just better than Gmail and maybe spam or all this stuff. It was just easier just to do it through there. So we're just going that route. So get ready. If you're watching live on the replay or if you're listening on the replay, we got a lot of conversation topics tonight. So be ready. It's going to be fast and furious and it ain't a movie. It's live. All right. First conversation topic. This past week's elections in America. Talk about it, ladies.
Well, you know what? We actually probably should have reversed the two subjects and put the bedwetting over the poll first, because remember the poll thing happened first and then the election. And here's the thing about the elections on Tuesday. We were watching 4 states, primarily Virginia, Mississippi, Kentucky, and what was the other state, LaLa? We were watching.
Was it Ohio?
Ohio, right.
Was it?
So the voters are speaking, and after watching the debate on Wednesday with Republicans, I don't think the Republican Party is hearing the people. The people don't like these strict abortion bans. Why? They want government out of women's bodies and business and people's bedrooms and leave the decision up to the individuals. They tried to, they the problem is that when they overturned Roe, it's like kick it back to the states. And now they're talking about, no, we need a federal ban because we can't trust the states to do this, because the moment that they do something we don't like. That was probably one of the smartest things that the Democrats did, was then to go and try and get all of these ballot initiatives around abortion on all of the states. So let the people send the message, let the people vote. And all of that down ballot, it is working. You know what? Who else lost big? Okay, the little CRT Karens, the Clan Karenhood, Moms for Liberty.
The Clan Karenhood.
Moms for what? What are they? Moms
for Liberty. They lost. Yeah. They were running for school boards across the country. By the way, I want to congratulate my friend Nakimi Cunningham Hayes, who did win a school board seat in Meriden, Connecticut. Yay. But Moms for Liberty were all over the place, trying to run these school boards. They lost every race except for one, and that one was in a really, 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 really deep red district. But they lost.
But we've been telling y'all this from the beginning. This is a perfect example. This is how they get their feet in on these small boards. So let it be known just how important this is. Don't just not realize who's running for these little school boards and these little jailers and these little things, because that's how they get their feet in. And there was a gentleman who I absolutely loved on TikTok. I wish I remembered his name, but he literally every day, when he found out that one of those people were running for those, he would put it up so that people would understand who they were and why they were running and what platform they were running on. The more we keep ourselves informed, the better.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things that we'll have to talk about doing, is highlighting some of these races coming up in 2024, some of the down ballot races, so that people know what's going on. Because the thing is that ordinarily, we're not thinking about who's running for a school board in New Mexico on our show, because it's not national, but it is important. It's important to the people in New Mexico, because here's the thing. People said, we don't want you telling us what books should and should not be available to our children. One, most of y'all don't have a college degree. Two, none of y'all have any kind of education when it comes to educating children. So who are you? Take care. I'm sorry. The one thing that Vivek Ramaswamy said to Nikki Haley, and I kind of was like,
hold it off, because
I know, but it's to make this point. Okay. Take care of home. Take care of your home first.
Yes.
Before you start trying to take care of everybody else.
We'll talk about that. Yes. That was very interesting.
But that's what these Moms for Liberty want to do. And I bet you, if all of them spent more time working at home, we wouldn't have to be worried about who the next mass shooter is. Because I'm sure it's living under one of their roofs. Meanwhile, they're over here trying to say, oh, I don't want books about Black kids for Black kids in schools.
That's right.
Take care of your homegrown terrorists at home.
Well, they don't have anything else to do besides bake brownies, but and they don't even want to do that. They hire people to do that. But I have to say, I'm so proud of my home state, because I was really worried about Kentucky because Mitch gets his money clause in there. His wife gets his money clause in these votes, and Bashir pulled it out, and Cameron is out. He is not there, and I'm hoping and praying that this is the beginning of the fall of the house of McConnell, because he's zoned out, and I think he's put all his focus into definitely trying to get Cameron into a place where he wanted him to be before he retired. That didn't happen, and that was very important. And Cameron was extremely dangerous to the part where he was going to ban birth control pills.
Yeah. And Mitch McConnell probably froze at the ballot box himself. So
you had to go there.
Yep. Two things about the Kentucky race, right? I think there were two things that worked in Bashir's favor. The first, That ad about the girl that said that she was raped by her stepfather when she was 12 and got pregnant, that right there spoke to a lot of people. And I'm going to tell you why. Because it's what most people sit here and think, when they think of young girls at 12 getting raped and pregnant and impregnated. I bet you most people, when we talked about that 10-year-old girl that had to go across state lines, I bet you the majority of Americans thought it was either a little Black or Hispanic girl. They saw a face that looked like their daughter's, that they could recognize, they could identify with.
Representation.
Yes, and that worked. That was the first thing. The second thing that did not help Cameron was that Black voters got out there and were reminding everyone he did not want to prosecute the killers of Breonna Taylor. Basically, he wants to let the police come in as a police state to your home and murder you, and you will not get justice. This man does not need to be governor, because guess what? If he'll do it to us as AG, look what he's going to do to all of us if he's governor. And so those two things really, really helped him at the polls.
Mm-hmm.
But Mississippi,
I was so proud.
Mississippi, we couldn't pull it out, but we got close. I got to say, the Democrat in Mississippi has got closer than I think in the last couple of gubernatorial races. But guess what? Here's the thing. It's not going to happen. It's not going to go down. The incumbent, he's not going to go down without a struggle, because just as soon as that election was a struggle, the counting and everything, what happened? Because they tried during the voter interference with the not having enough ballots in Jackson, but what happened? They started talking about the thing that he did with Brett Favre and the money, the missing welfare money, welfare money. And it's going to probably take yet another cycle of talking about that for people to get the hint. But we're getting closer in Mississippi compared to where we were the last time there was a gubernatorial election. Now, Virginia was a surprise. Youngkin staked whether or not he was going to become a presidential nominee on whether or not he won the House. Well, whether or not he was able to keep the Senate and win the House. They were predicting yet another red wave. And now he is a governor. And you know what got him? Was talking about that daggone abortion ban. Every time. It gets you every time. And what happened? He is now a Republican governor with a majority Democratic state House, majority Democratic state Senate. You know what I would like to tell him? Ask Jody Rell, governor of Connecticut, how well that worked for her. Ask Rowland, who was also corrupt and went to prison, who was former governor of Connecticut, who was a Republican, how that worked for him. Because here's the thing. When you're a Republican governor and you have those two houses in control, you basically... it doesn't matter. You veto it, whatever, they'll go over your head. They'll go over you.
Yeah, so, I mean, it's just it won't work. It just doesn't work. It's that square in a round peg. No, it's not going to work. Yeah, as hard as you want it to, it's going to go nowhere.
Yeah, and the people in Virginia are telling you right there. And you know what? It took a couple election cycles to turn the tide in Virginia, but what happened? What was it that started shifting it? It was Charlottesville. Remember, Charlottesville is in Virginia. What happened there? Right. What happened there? Taking down the Confederate monuments and all of that stuff started the real turn of how people are voting. And so there are a lot of losses that Democrats have suffered legislatively with Congress and with the Supreme Court. However, everything that the Supreme Court keeps overturning, guess what? The people are like, well, you know what? Federal government's not going to do it. We're going to do it at the state law. And if Democrats are smart, January 1, every state put a ballot initiative on guns, on
Yes.
having your state mandate you need a license to own a gun. Why? You need a real estate license. You need a license to get married. You need a license to drive a car, a license to drive a truck, a license to practice law, a license to practice medicine, a license to teach. You need a license for just about everything in this country, except for guns. And guess what? There are two things that that you don't really need a license for. Guns are to have kids, but guess what? They will take your kids away a lot faster than they will take your guns away. Okay.
Very well.
So let's be very clear. Start working with the elections this week. Tell us about the elections next year. It's those ballot initiatives. If they're going to try and take our rights away at the federal level, then we need to start putting those back and restoring them back in our states and in our local governments.
Agreed.
All right. Jen says
Yes.
that Ohio did well. 100. LaLa, you're happy about your state.
I am. I'm so proud of them. But now let me also say it was a little closer than I always like. But we always have those hardcore red areas that have never turned blue. So I wasn't surprised about that. But there were a couple of districts within Kentucky that did really pull it out the other direction, because Bashir really has done a wonderful job in Kentucky. He is compassionate. He's a fair man. He's an honest man, but he's also tough, and he knows how to stand up and speak properly and get to the people and make them understand why things are important. So Bashir is an excellent candidate to represent us, because he really does take into account both sides, but he also knows when to say enough of this BS. We're gonna proceed the way we're gonna proceed. And his actions with Brianna and actions with the shooting that happened there were very honorable. And I'm really seeing him go a lot further than what he's doing in Kentucky, and I hope that he does.
And I think that's something else that endeared him to the people too, was his response versus the response of his competitor there. When that shooting took place, he lost someone personally in that shooting, and he acted with compassion. He didn't do political double talk, and that is what Cameron did in that moment. And here's the thing: these things, these tragedies, these climate tragedies, these mass shootings, these kinds of things like this are what really tell and test. They tell you, the people, but they really test what a governor is made of. And whether or not they can handle not just the state, but that is also how we judge whether or not someone is okay to run the country. Okay. Mm-hmm. I have yet the 300 some odd mass shootings that we've had in this country. I've seen Joe Biden has had to deal with every last one. Mm-hmm. I have yet to see Donald Trump address any of them. He's too busy talking about himself. And also to remember this, America, 4 years that man was president, there were mass shootings. And for 4 years, he said nothing, and he stood with Pepe Le Pew at the NRA. So remember that.
Pepe Le Pew, I love it.
Oh boy. All right. All right. So, okay, you know what?
What's his name? LaPierre? I think that's his name.
Something like that. You're right. We'll leave it at Pepe Le Pew.
Yeah. So Aisha mentioned earlier on in the week, there was a recent poll by the New York Times showing 45 is ahead of Biden. It'd be very interesting to see if that poll, what happened to that, if they took that poll post what happened in the Tuesday results in the elections. But
it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. And here's why, because I'm going to break down this poll for you.
Yeah, Well, by the way, this is a reason you need to go to the Discord group, because Aisha did a serious throwdown on this in our Discord group. But go ahead, Aisha.
Okay, so this is New York Times Cinema College poll. Now, we're going to take Aisha's Research Methods Statistics 101 class. When I teach college students this, and this is what I tell them. First of all, if you want to know any information about whether a poll can be reliable, is it valid, is it really telling you, and are the results really telling you the information that it says it's going to? It's not, don't look at the flashy numbers in the headlines. Look at the tiny print at the bottom, because that will tell you. There are key demographic information pieces that you want to pull out. One, you want to know how many people did you poll? Don't tell me that this is what Americans think, American voters think, when there were 160 million Americans who voted in the last election, and they only polled about 3,500 people. Not only did they poll 3,500 people, but these are quote unquote likely voters. So it's likely that some of those people they polled did not vote in the last two presidential elections, and likely that they might not vote in this one. Then beyond that, what they did not say is that they only polled, the majority of the people they polled were Republican or independent, right Republican leaning voters. So already they're not going to be Team Biden. Okay, let's be very clear. Don't expect Biden to do well. Why does Donald Trump do well in all the polls that he does of his people? Because he's only polling his people. That's why he gets a 98% approval rating in all those polls. Now, you go back, you look at the number of people that they polled. You have to also look at that plus minus information, because that tells you how many percentage points the error is. That tells you how big the error is. If the error is more than 5, there is something wrong with the poll. The poll, there's too much room for error there. Okay, that's that thing. Then what they also didn't say in all these headlines, they only polled people in 5 of the 6 2024 battleground states. Okay, that's it. They didn't poll even 3,500 people from around the country. Just 5 of the 6 battleground states for 2024. Now, here's the thing about battleground states. Battleground states change every election cycle, because remember, Florida is not even considered a battleground state anymore. It's just solid red. But in 2000, it was a battleground state. Remember, that's why we had the Supreme Court decide that George W. Bush was going to be president. So, Michigan is considered a battleground state sometimes. Sometimes it's not. Pennsylvania, it fluctuates, because now they're concerned about Arizona, Nevada, those states. Okay, so those were the states that they polled. Then, when you look at what percentage of the actual electorate comes from those battleground states, it's just 7%. So that means 93% of Americans didn't even weigh in on this poll, right? Available Americans didn't weigh in on this poll. So if it's 7% of the electorate, think about the even smaller percentage that is of the electoral college vote. Because remember, we have a popular vote, but our presidents are made by the electoral college. And those battleground states are not the states with the most electoral votes. And to be perfectly honest, the whole South has more electoral votes than those battleground states put together. Okay, so all of the bedwetting, the hand-wringing, the pearl clutching, and histrionics from the Democrats, it needs to stop. Learn how to read a poll, and we're a year out. Okay, Republicans are going to Republican. Okay, that's that. All their polls are going to look at this, but the news media needs to do a much better job in terms of how they report these things. New York Times had a vested interest in making sure that everybody saw this their way, because guess what? It's their poll. They paid for it. But if I made this point in the Discord group, and you'll have to go and read it because I don't remember the exact wording that I used, and I put it on my Instagram too. But when the polling organization, the media organization, has to, in an 8-hour period, then publish 8 other stories to say, oh, look, this and this agree with us. These people agree with our poll, so it's not wrong. They know there's something wrong with that poll. Because if your poll is good and your information is good, it stands on its own, period. You don't have to go back and try to convince people that you didn't make a mistake.
All right. All right. All right. Good lowdown. LaLa, what are your thoughts about this? Actually, what are your thoughts of this poll? It was put out the day before the election. What are your
I
thoughts?
think we like to use these things for scare tactics. For many, many years, I've always been like, these polls are not right. I never got as deep as Aisha. I have to say, Aisha has way more education about these polls, but there's always been something that has never set right with me about how they do these polls, because to me, I was like, there's many pieces missing. And I get so tired of all these polls coming out ahead of time, because I think it's scare tactics. And you have to definitely look at who's behind them, because the Republicans want you to think that they're okay. And then that discourages, believe it or not, some people do fall into this, what I call sheeple. Oh, well, what's the use of me going out to vote? But that's what they're counting on. Mm-hmm. So we must really be vigilant about understanding who is putting out these polls, how they're being read, and are they really valid or not? Because if you ask me, this big to do, it's not valid at all. Yeah. Nothing about it.
Yeah. And to Laura's point, this poll, when did they publish it and publish this and go on this whole like press thing on the day before the election?
Yeah,
that's deliberate. Because I promise you, they didn't just poll people over the weekend. They did that. If they did it with a college, they did this probably about a month out. So they held it. They held it for the sensational factor. And what impact does that do? That, we've been talking about misinformation and disinformation, and the New York Times should be ashamed of itself for putting out this disinformation and misinformation the day before an election. They could have changed some races based upon that. People stayed home because they read that. People didn't show up because of that. And I think at some point we need to start holding our media accountable for these things. If voters started suing these media conglomerates for them and their misinformation impacting the vote, I bet you they'd stop.
Yeah, I agree. But everything is gone amok. Absolutely everything. I mean, everything you read, everything you can't get away from it. I mean, it's really hard. If you pick up social media, it's there. If you pick up, a newspaper, it's there. If you pick up a news source, it's there. So you have to educate yourself. And now it's beyond important for you to take the time to sit down to really learn about what you are for and what you are against and how you need to go about it. It's like a game plan. It's no different than a football game. Right. They have plays. They know what to do. They know when someone is going to call this play. All right, what do you do when they call this play? Then everybody needs to execute. This is what you have to see it as. This is a game, and you need to learn how to play it to win it.
Right. And, the shame of it all is that the New York Times has name recognition. It has a reputation. People believe it to be a reliable firsthand news source. And they used that legacy that they have to dupe the public, to scare the public, and to drive traffic to their site. And they should be ashamed.
Is that what you call clickbait?
Oh, absolutely. But even beyond it just being clickbait, the sad part of it is that every news organization then went and reported on what the New York Times reported without analyzing it and without having someone say, hey, can you explain the details of this poll? Because when I first read it, the first thing I went to look for was the actual polling information. I wanted to know, who are you talking to? Who's saying this?
Yeah.
Like, you know how black folks are, who all's over there before we go to somebody's house? Yeah. I want to know who all was over there talking about this stuff before I decide to believe it or not. Who all was over there?
That's
so
right.
I look for that information. That should be your rule of thumb. Who all was over there talking before you believe any political poll? And the poll, I mean,
T-shirt that says
but it's the truth. It's like, I need to know, were all these people straight? Were all these people, what faith were they? Black, white? What was their ethnicity? How many were men? How many were women? How many identified with another gender or did not identify with a gender?
Yeah.
How old were these people? How did you reach them? Did you mail them? Did you email them? Did you use a landline? Did you use a mobile phone? What I need some information. I need to know the details, because the devil is in the details and the devil's in those daggone headlines.
All right.
So ask yourself, who all's over there?
Well, talking about details and misinformation, our next conversation, 45 fraud trial. Defense scheduled to start presenting its case on Monday. And 45 was quite
he was in rare form, wasn't he? You know, the part that I liked was when the attorney general, the lawyer there for the attorney general, was asking him about how come he didn't take care to make sure of all these things, and to make sure everything was correct. And he's like, well, because I was busy running the country and we had to deal with China and this and that. And he said, I'm sorry, in 2021, you were not president.
That was the best line of the whole day. My man.
I mean, and honestly, the man, he could not help himself when he was just up there. I mean, he came in, they said, with like a little index card or some notes because he wanted to read a speech. This wasn't one of your little campaign rallies. This was a courtroom.
Didn't the judge say that this is not that it's not a campaign rally?
The judge was not here for it. That judge was like, if I said what I said was a person, it was that judge. He was like, you know what? Play Monopoly, don't play me. I am not to be toyed with, okay? I am not to be toyed with, sir. We're not having this. Let's shut it down. I don't want to hear your comments. I'm not here to hear your comments. I'm here to hear you answer questions. Now, right. I'll tell you what the trash is. The trash is sitting right next to Trump and that attorney of his. Why are we even here at this point? Because she forgot to file the paperwork for a jury trial. So here we are with a bench piece. And let's be clear, the judge does have to rule on six other things. A bench
piece? Did you say a bench piece?
Well, it's a bench trial, right? So but I'm saying, when I mean this bench piece, there are pieces to this trial that are all making up this one thing. There are 6 things that he still has to rule on, but the overarching thing that he did was say, hey, this is fraud. Why are we debating the fraud part? What you need to be telling me is whether I should charge you $250 million or take all your shit away. And pardon my French, but take all your stuff away, right? So he's not impressing upon this judge that he really, really wants him to go easy on him. He's making it hard. And every time he goes out and talks smack, that judge just sits there and says, cha-ching,
sure does.
Adds a 0 behind whatever it is. And Letitia James, Donald Trump, this is his comeuppance. He is so angry and so pissed that this unbothered Black woman is sitting there in the courtroom looking at him the whole time, and he can do.
Didn't even say something about she didn't even know where the building was, and she was like, sir, I look right at that building every day. My office is right across the street from it.
Right. But the other part too is like, he's like, oh, she doesn't have the right to do that. Guess what?
Oh,
fraud. When you everybody knows this. Okay, I just watched, my daughter and I were watching an American Greed marathon earlier today, and they said it in one of the other things. You cannot tell a bank that you have more assets than you do to get a
That's
loan.
right.
That is fraud.
It's fraud.
It's fraud. And I'm sorry, you know what, Donald Trump? Your name means a whole lot more to you than what it does to the state of New York. And that's the thing that bothers you more than anything. Letitia James told you that your name, you know what your Trump name is worth? Exactly $250 million, which we will take. And that is it. I still stand by my favorite line being that day that she announced that she was filing the suit. She said, when you lie and misrepresent yourself and say that you have money that you do not have, it is fraud.
It's
She
fraud.
told everybody he ain't rich.
And that hit him below the belt because that is a nightmare for him. You want to talk about, there's things that I see down, we all know if you take away his phone, you take away his mouthpiece, and you take away his illusion of him being a rich man, a billionaire, whatever he wants to see, then that is your kryptonite. That's when you're going to see Donald Trump turn into the Wizard of Oz, which talking about, because that's exactly how he sees himself if those perceptions are off.
Right. I mean, the only other thing that you can tell that man that would hurt his feelings is that he ain't fine. That man looks in the mirror every day with I don't know what kind of look back into the future glasses, but he looks in the mirror. He thinks he's fine. He thinks he's virile and all the women want him. He thinks he's rich. And he's none of them. He is none of them.
Never has been. It's all been an illusion of money, including with the wives was trophy wives. Those chicks know what they were doing in the first place. And everybody talking about free Melania. Melania knew what she was doing. She still know what she's doing. She's a smart woman. She knows what she's doing.
What do you mean free Melania? Melania's up living in New York City.
Honey,
while he's in Florida.
Right. She's not saying him. She knew what she signed up for, and this is what she's agreed to.
And I mean, let's be very clear. His lawyer, Alina Habba, she's there for two reasons. The first reason is because he thinks she's pretty.
Yeah.
The second is that she's auditioning to be wife number 4.
I hate to say it, but it's true.
Wow.
It's so obvious. We'll see. When Melania has had enough, when she gets what she wants out of all of this, she's going to go too. And she's going to take Barron with her. Now, you guys have to really realize, and if you need to pay attention, I don't care how old Barron is, he's getting ready to be 18. We talked about that before. She has completely protected him. And I do not think that that's going to change after he turns 18. She doesn't want him involved in this. She doesn't want this game.
Yeah, she, for all the faults and stuff of these women, Melania and Marla Maples were the smartest with how they handled their children with him.
Yes.
They kept the children out of the business stuff.
Yes.
Those older three, the three children who basically need a juice box and a nap are the ones who are all up in his stuff. And guess what? They get what they deserve. Ivanka came there because she had to, but she's been distancing herself away from them. Look, she distanced herself away from them so much, she got invited to a Kardashian birthday party this last weekend.
Sure did.
She's back doing the things that she was doing when they were still doing The Apprentice now. And let's be very clear. That really had to hurt her dad. Yes. Ivanka was invited, but he wasn't because guess what president probably would have been invited? Barack Obama. And that would have made him mad, right? But it goes back to what Donald Trump always thought, was that, Barack Obama got all these A-listers and Hollywood welcomed him and he got all these deals and this and this and this. And everybody's going to feel that way about me because The Apprentice was so popular. It was until you opened your mouth. Yeah. You start, the birther stuff didn't help. And then what happened? You didn't get any multi-million-dollar deals with Netflix. You got 91 indictment charges.
Play stupid games with
stupid
players. You're singing together. This is dangerous. This is dangerous. Okay. So next, well, we'll save it to our statement.
And look, and I'm sorry, but Beavis and Butthead didn't do anything to help him on the stand.
No, did not even one little thing. Just to show themselves a perfect seat.
Right. Yeah, and look, Eric Trump going out after and doing his little press thing. It's like, dude, do you realize that you just gave Jack Smith some information?
Sure did. Jack just putting it in his pocket. I just love how Jack's like, thank you very much. Put that in my pocket.
Exactly. It's like you know what? If any of them had any kind of self-control, they would just shut up, because every chance. Remember, ego is very dangerous.
Oh,
if they are drunk with ego and power to the point that, you know what, that's that saying, loose lips sink ships. Mm-hmm. The more they talk about themselves and the things that they did and try to justify everything to look good, the more they tell on themselves. You know, every projection is an admission. Every time.
I mean, look at him. The same thing goes with him. I mean, this past week he sold a freaking Glock. You are under indictment, you idiot. That's illegal.
This is the second time he sold it, because remember, he wasn't supposed to buy it in the first place. When you are on bail, I guess he forgot he's out on bail and bond. When you are on bail, you cannot buy a gun.
He thinks he's above. He really, truly thinks he's going to get away with this.
And they need to do him like they do these young black kids who are being charged, who have charges, but go up on their Instagram taking pictures because holding somebody else's gun, because he was up there posing with that gun, holding it,
and didn't even really know how to hold it, y'all.
And I'm sorry. How you hold a gun. Look. That picture might come back to bite him in the behind. You know why? Because remember, Fonnie Willis just had a major breakthrough in her Young Thug YSL case, saying that they can use the lyrics, as admissions in evidence. So if that works for that RICO case, Donnie, they can use the pictures, as evidence in this case. They can look. They can use, if they can use the lyrics, they can use your campaign speeches and your TV things in the case. So look,
it's not going to be enough popcorn in the world for me when this happens. I'm excited.
If his attorneys were smart, they would spend more time focusing on that YSL case and how she's handling that RICO case than they would up on television.
Yeah, I agree.
Because she's doing Jedi ninja moves right there, okay? Because everything that she gets done there, it's an opening for her to bring it back to this case.
Yep.
Because if I was his attorney, I'd be looking real closely at what has been going on and all the pretrial motions going on that case to expect this one. The only other thing that is a problem there that bothers me more than anything is Cannon. She knows that she's not going to have that trial in May, but she's saying that she's not going to move the date so she can hold it so Fonnie can't schedule her in May. But what they're overlooking are two very important things. The first thing, Fonnie said the day that she announced and the day after, we're ready to go to court on all 19 today. October, November, we're ready. That's the first thing. Second thing, between his trial dates in March and his trial date in May, guess what there is that nobody's talking about? A whole month, April. Fonnie can ask for April. Then where will he be?
Then they'll be stuck. And I wouldn't put it past her to do that. I really don't. She's smart. I really do. I've really been kind of researching her background, and she is one smart cookie. So I would not put it past her.
Yeah, April. So I look at her probably setting a late April deadline to get this thing started, because these judges and these attorneys who really aren't playing with him are not playing with him. Okay.
No, they're not.
Tanya Chutkin said February 9th is when they're going to start doing the jury selection for that trial. His lawyer tried just this past week to kick it down the can further by saying, okay, well, they need to turn over something or whatever it is. But she said that, okay, they asked for an extension from the 13th to the 15th of January. Cool. They wanted to have a motion or something or make arguments on that. And then they wanted a couple of more months to turn over whatever it is that they need to give to the prosecution or turn back.
Okay.
And Tanya Chutkin said, okay, you can have your 2 days. She said, you can have your extra time. I'll give you 2 days. But make your arguments, but be prepared that same day to give the stuff over.
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to kick this down further. So these people aren't playing with him. They're not playing with him.
No, but I'm here for it because I'm really that judge down in Florida. She's just gonna lay over, rub my belly. What can you give for me later? Because the other people are very serious, but we know what's going to happen down in Florida.
Yeah, but I want Americans to be and I want Democrats especially to be very real with themselves. This man is not going to be convicted of anything before the 2024 election. How do we know this? Because if you look at the average time it takes for a murder trial to go from an arrest to go to court, you're talking about anywhere between 1 to 4 years on average. The fact that these things are pre-scheduled pretty quickly is good, but we're talking about probably about a year because they still have to have motions. There are going to be delay tactics. His attorneys are going to show up and show out, and there are going to be all kinds of things going on there. And then there's going to be this issue about gag orders, and Trump keeps trying to go back and forth to the Supreme Court. So he's going to try and push it. So there will be no conviction by November. But here is the good thing. You have your opportunity to basically ensure that he does have a conviction. How? Vote for his opposition in November. Because the thing is that once that happens, he will go to trial after. He still has to go to trial after that. But there is nothing to save him. There's nothing to save him at that point. And let's be very, very clear. This man is not well. These cases, he's too scatterbrained and too all over the place to even be considered a real and logical presidential candidate. His head is with those cases. He can't think about you. He can't think about this country.
You can't run the country when you're defending yourself in court. You can't do it.
Right. And Letitia James is living rent-free in his head every second of every day. So is Fonnie Willis. So is Alvin Bragg. Okay. All these Black folks are living rent-free in his head, and he cannot stand it. And if you ask me, every time he talks, he has not given a comprehensive campaign speech at any of these rallies. He's wandering, he's meandering, and has the nerve to talk about Joe Biden getting sleepy after traveling. This man cannot. This man talked about whales, wind tunnels, and things like that. His trials. He did not once talk about what he and in retribution. He did not once talk about what he will do to bring down the price of gas, which, by the way, has gone down significantly. I noticed. What he will do to bring down inflation. So as long as he's not as long as he's talking about himself, he's not talking about you. So you should not be thinking about voting for that man, period. And these cases are more evidence as to why he needs to be in jail, not in the White House.
Well, then, I mean, I still say that Colorado is definitely still going to set this precedent about if he's going to be put on the ballot in a lot of states.
And Michigan will follow suit.
Yeah, I agree. And so we really need to be paying attention to what Colorado's doing, and it looks like they're going to be successful at this. Once
And
somebody
Minnesota
is
too. Minnesota is also just as far along as
yeah,
Colorado is. And if once Colorado sets this and it sets a precedent, it will open it up for others. It will open it up
yeah,
for other states. That doesn't mean that people can't write him in, which I'm sure
right.
they will. But the fact of the matter is that it sends a message to him.
Yes, it
You are not
does.
above the law. And when you do insurrectionist things, you'll be treated like one. And here's the irony of this is that he's being tried for an insurrection. He's being kicked. They're trying to kick him off some ballots for insurrection. What does this man say he's going to do day one? He's going to enact the Insurrection Act, which means the federal government can stop people from protesting. And you know, the Insurrection Act is the thing that like Eisenhower he enacted to help the National Guard help the kids at Little Rock go to high school, to go to Kennedy did for Mississippi, so James Meredith could go to college in Mississippi. I mean, that's what it has traditionally been used for. So now he's talking about using it toward people like. Guess what? If he already tried to do it in 2020.
He's using it
Black
for
Lives
his
Matter. He's gonna, and he's going to use that so the government can stop people from voting. The other thing too that I want you to pay very close attention to, because he keeps every interview he does when he talks about these cases, and he talks about the retribution. He says, "I'm going to do this act, and that means if anyone who is running against me does, and I don't like how they're doing in the polls, I will charge them and have them arrested." It's not the fact that he says he's going to do that. It's the fact that he says, if anyone is running against me, we have a 2-term limit for the presidency in this country. When he says that, if he wins again, he couldn't be a 3rd-term president. He's telling you without saying, explicitly, I'm going to get rid of term limits.
That's exactly what he's going for. But he wanted
to
be a
dictator.
Testing the water. He wants to be a dictator in all forms and fashions. But he actually he was testing the waters by saying that a few times. The first time he was in the office.
Yeah, so, and the media needs to call him on it. Every time he says that, somebody needs to say, "Hold up, sir. If you win again, that will be your 2nd term. You cannot run again. So if somebody's you're not going to have any opposition because you can't run again. Are you saying that you're going to get rid of the term limit so you can run a 3rd term?" Somebody needs to ask him that question.
We know the answer. He don't even got an answer, but he should be accountable.
But it's the fundamental laziness of our media.
Exactly.
All right. Let's move forward to our next conversation topic. And Michelle Hayward says, "I love the background." Well, thank you. I hope you're enjoying the conversation as much as you're enjoying the background. So let's move on forward with our next conversation topic. And Aisha talked about it a little bit earlier on, but let's get into more deeper dive. This week's American Republican Party presidential debate.
I watched it, so you guys didn't have to.
Before you even start, let me tell you something. You were in the Discord group like you should be. She broke it down so you didn't have to watch. And it was the best commentary I think I've heard in a very long time. Take it away, Aisha.
Let me tell you something. First things first. Tim Scott has teeth. He has a lot of teeth, and they're very big, and he wants you to know that he has teeth, because that man said not one thing I needed to pay attention for, and I couldn't pay attention because his teeth. He was opening his mouth and enunciating his words so big, I was too busy looking at this reincarnation of Donkey from Shrek on my TV screen that I couldn't pay attention to what he was saying. That's the first thing. Second thing, y'all know I'm not a big fan of Nikki Haley.
Mm-hmm.
She'd been practicing that line about her wearing 5-inch heels and only if you can run in them, since Sarah Palin said about being a soccer mom, difference between a soccer mom and a pig, heels and lipstick. It's like, God, Sarah Palin called from 2008. She wants her line back. Vivek Ramaswamy, if you ask me, he won the debate. Why? Because everybody agreed on one thing. They all hate him. They all hate him.
They do.
Nikki Haley called him scum. But he did tell her, you know what? If you're going to throw your hands, you got to be ready to cut some blows. Okay? So she made fun in that last one about joining TikTok. You know what Vivek did? Well, your daughter, you made fun of me. Your daughter's up on TikTok. You need to worry about your daughter, worry about home. And Nikki, leave my daughter out of this. I personally don't feel that we should be attacking the children of politicians. However, my limit is when it's children. Nikki Haley's daughters are older than mine because I remember when she worked at the State House and I worked for a legislative commission and her daughters were like school age and mine was a toddler. So, I mean, he didn't have to go after her, but the bottom line is that Nikki Haley, I think that was also a more of a cutting thing to her about worrying about home, because there had been some talk when she was trying to run for governor the first time in South Carolina that she had been having affairs and stuff with, people that were running her campaign. So I think that was like a cut on him at one hand. But the other thing, somebody made this point on and a post that someone shared with me from Twitter that said Nikki Haley hates Vivek so much because he did nothing to get on the same stage as her. He's Indian just like her, except that he didn't have to whitewash himself and change his name. He demands that these people pronounce his name correctly. And they said, what did they call him? They said baby Bobby Jindal has her shaking in her samosas. Okay, it was a very pointed Indian reference. This was someone Indian who said this, but what they were saying was that what angers her more than anything, she wants to be the only Indian there. That is also why she hates Kamala Harris, because Nikki Haley for years, going back to when she was in the State House, people were always saying she's going to be the first Indian American, either vice president or president, right? And Kamala beat her to it. So now that's why she's on this warpath with Kamala. So you need to know that. Ron DeSantis, actually, it was probably his best performance. I mean, he talked. I know he did. The thing about his boots having heels came up. But I mean, he continued to talk about things that just still aren't popular. He kept going on and on about the abortion ban and the 6-week thing, which Americans just the night before told these Republicans, stop doing that. Stop it. Nikki Haley believes on that issue that the Republicans have to be honest. They will not do it federally. It should go to the states, but she will be down for whatever gets her the election. Tim Scott again says that he is, he's staunch, pro life, and is for 15 weeks. Chris Christie was there.
He was there.
I think this is probably where he did talk, and he said, and again, I'm glad Mika Brzezinski the next day challenged him on what he said, but he's like, well, I'm pro-life, but my state has, up to the 9th month abortion, blah, 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 blah. Mika Brzezinski said, what woman is having an abortion at 9 months? I'm sorry, people, let's be clear. You do know that an abortion, or a quote unquote, even a spontaneous abortion, you know what that's called? Labor. That's called your water broke and you're having contractions. A baby is born literally through what is a medical term of spontaneous abortion. That's what they call a miscarriage. Nobody's having an abortion in the 9th month, because guess what? If you know anything about women and women's bodies or the process it takes, what hose is going to suck out a full-term baby?
Yeah.
What hose with an opening about that big is going to suck out something with a head that's about that big.
Mhm.
And any woman who's ever been in labor and has seen her body do things it should never do, okay, will tell you, yeah, 9 months, 9 months of pregnancy. Yeah, I'm kind of ready for you to take this thing out. Okay,
Right.
I was ready by
Well,
8.
then we're doing jumping jacks. We walking around the neighborhood.
My daughter came 3.5 weeks early. Okay, they had to take her, and so here's the thing: nobody's having an abortion at 9 months. First of all, you know what that's called? Murder, homicide. 9 months, an infant is alive. That it's illegal. So Chris Christie went in on that thing, but then he did make a point about we have to be pro-life the whole life of the child, not just when they're in the womb. That is a point that I think should have gotten higher. But here's the big,
talk about that, Aisha.
no.
That's a point of thing. They let that go in one out the other. They're never going to address that ever.
No. And here's the one big takeaway from this, that if anything, not one of them said anything that is going to make them win.
They're all
Donald Trump is 40 points ahead of his next closest, which is Ron DeSantis, and Nikki Haley's right behind him. At this point, it's just, they're just going through the motions, just like kind of like Tim Scott with his girlfriend, who we did get to meet. Her name is Mindy. Corny name for a corny woman dating a corny black man, who, if you look at her, she looks exactly how you think she would look. You know what? Actually, Tim Scott with Mindy reminds me a lot of Harold Ford Jr. and his wife, the Anheuser-Busch heiress, that he ended up marrying.
Yeah.
Right.
I forgot about that.
Because I remember when Harold Ford Jr. Dated a different type of woman back in Tennessee when I was in graduate school and worked for the NAACP there, and he used to come through. I mean, she put it this way: she's got the shade for people to open their wallets for Tim Scott, a black man who is not going to win a Republican nomination for president.
It's strategic.
Okay. I'm just gonna catch up because Michelle has a number of comments that she's put in. I want to just catch up on. First, she says, as a South Carolinian, I agree about Tim Scott and his teeth. Okay. Next up, she says, Nikki Haley is from my home county. Her dad taught at once one of the HBCUs in my hometown.
Was it Claflin that he used to be a professor of, I think?
She's more than a mess. She did nothing for South Carolina residents when she was in audience.
Nope.
Maybe in office. Maybe she wants to say maybe. Also, Aisha, you hit the nail on the head about Nikki whitewashing her life. She attended a quote Christian unquote academy, which was worse in terms of whiteness.
And I need her to make up her mind about her backstory. Did you attend a Christian academy, or did you go to public schools in Bamberg, South Carolina? Because honestly, you can't have it both ways. I need her to also explain to me how she's the only one in a family of 3 kids that has an Americanized middle name when all the rest of them have middle names that are Indian. Nimrata, I need the answers.
Okay. Michelle also says, Tim Scott and Lady Lindsay are not into women. He don't have to lie like this. I'm not going there.
I don't even think Tim Scott is into anyone. I think he's very asexual. I imagine that if you stripped him naked, there would be blobs where all the parts should be.
Okay, not behave yourself. All right, Michelle says Haley's dad taught at
Voorhees. Okay, that was the one.
College. And
I know it was either Voorhees or Claflin.
Cinnamon Canella's in here. Then, hi there, late again, but you're here. No problem.
I mean, Tim Scott, at this point, he's just trying to get money. After watching this, and I couldn't stomach, I'm sorry, I didn't watch the last 20 minutes because I couldn't stomach them all making their last individual pitches. I
That's
suffered
the
through as much as
worst
I could.
time.
But here's my thing. I need to know what their point is. What is your end game? Because clearly it's not to become president. And this is very critical. I have never seen anyone run in a primary like this that did not tack the front runner and take. Donald Trump is an easy target. He's an easy mark. Tackle him, take him down. Show no
But
mercy.
they act like they're afraid of him. What is it?
No, I don't
The
think they're
only
afraid of him. I think
one-
they don't want to go against his base.
No, they
know so
don't,
much.
because they want to come back to them at some point. But that's why I
Yes.
need to know what the end game is, because here's the
I don't
thing.
think that.
Those people are gone. You're not getting them back. They are not Republicans. They are the MAGA
There you go.
cult. Period. They're
That's
gone.
my point. That you can't circle around something that's lost. To me, you're not going to get those people. Period.
No, I'm really upset that their primary. Let me tell you something. You want a primary with some firecrackers, some fireworks, and where the front runner and the person who was second, who people believe were second, they went after each other, and he took her out. Hillary Clinton, Barack Obama, when they were the last two standing. Remember how contentious that was. And people told Barack Obama, you don't want to go for her because she's a woman and people are going to come after you that way. You don't want to go for her because Democrats love Hillary Clinton. He went for the jugular, knocked her clear out the way. Period. He had to go and do some apologizing afterwards. He had to go give her a position so people who supported her would, they could nurse their little feelings and boo-boos and stuff and show up. But he did what needed to be done. These people are not doing what needs to be done. If you don't want to attack him on the lawsuits, attack him on the fact that the man cannot speak a coherent sentence. Attack him on the fact that compared to every last person that was on that stage, he is a geriatric. He is just as old as Biden.
That's right.
For that. I mean, there are other things you could go after him for, other common sense arguments that you could make as to why he is unfit, that have nothing to do with the insurrection, that have nothing to do with his court cases, just on the basic fitness for the job. But I'm like, are you trying to make money? Are you trying to get corporate jobs? Are you setting yourself up for 2028? Which, honestly, that Republican Party that you're expecting to be there in 2028 because you think Donald Trump won't run again, they're not going to be there. How do we know? No. Because we saw all these races where Donald Trump, these years between when he lost and before he announced, he has been putting his little 2 cents in every election. And you all keep losing as long as he puts his 2 cents in. That man got the mic and he refuses to drop it.
Okay, let me just continue on. Michelle, Haley did attend Bamberg Public Schools, but was treated badly. Her parents pulled them out and moved to Orangeburg. Michelle also says they won't attack 45 because his followers will attack them. She also says Barack has been raised by YT women, so he knew how better to navigate Hillary.
But you got to remember, Barack's mother died almost 20 years before he had been doing that, and so he had absorbed that last 20 years had been spent around Michelle and her family. So I don't even think that was the whole thing with Hillary. I just think that he was much savvier and wanted it more than any of these people. These people don't want to be the nominee, because if they want to be the nominee, Donald Trump be gone.
So Michelle also says 45 base are not educated, so I don't agree about talking about his speaking, etc., as it relates to his intelligence. And Jen says your new background picture is fabulous. Absolutely love it. Thank you. Well, anything else you want to add? Either one of you before.
To Michelle's point, though, it's not about his base not being educated, and talking about his speaking as it relates to his intelligence. I'm not talking about his intelligence. I'm talking about his mental fitness for the job. When I say the man cannot hold a sentence, the same things that these people are saying makes Joe Biden unfit are the very things that they need to start attacking Donald Trump on. So it's not about him speaking with intelligence. It's about the fact that in a 10-minute conversation with a news person who asks him one question, he will talk about 20 different things. None of them are connected. None of them make sense. And every time he brings up that daggone camera, dog, man, woman, cognitive test that we do for people who have dementia. So that is the part. I think it's not about intelligence so much as it is about his cognitive and mental abilities to not be 76, 77, right? You know, I mean, because he keeps saying that he's this young, vibrant. No. Look. Donald, somebody made this very good point on talk radio yesterday, Urban View on Sirius XM said that, you know, because Manchin's talking about his little thing too, said Manchin, Trump, Biden, they all went to high school together. I don't know why they're competing about who's younger.
All right. Segue. Let's segue. Speaking of Joe Manchin, says he won't seek re-election in 2024.
Boy, bye. You were nothing but a chaos agent anyway. It's in Democrats, again, Democrats, please stop with the bedwetting and the ringing and the pearl clutching. Let's be clear. West Virginia is never going to have a Democratic anything. Okay. It is solidly red.
Yeah.
Joe Manchin, he was only occupying, he was a Democrat in theory. Remember, he blocked every piece of legislation that the Democrats were trying to pass. The other thing about us, quote unquote, losing the seat, we already lost that. Need I remind you all at the beginning of the summer, what did Joe Manchin say he was going to do? He said he was either going to be an independent or become a Republican. So why do we feel like that was our seat? That seat was there. It was just there.
But it's not doing us any justice at all anyway.
No, and you know what? Let us lose that seat. What does it do? It puts us in a tie. We have Kamala. She breaks the tie. Remember, too, I think people forget is that we do have independent members of the Senate. The Senate really isn't solidly Democrat. Angus King and Bernie Sanders are both independent Vermont and New Hampshire people because they have to be to win there. Third parties do well in New England. They really do well. But they both caucus and they both vote like Democrats. Kirsten Sinema, whatever she's an independent. We don't have her anyway. And that's why she's going to lose that seat. So let's be clear. She is. Gallego's going to take her out. Let's be clear. While there are some seats that, you know, while we will lose that seat, there are some seats that are going to be up for us. Okay. Yeah. So I'm sure there's one that we will be able to recoup. But Joe Manchin, if he thinks he's going to do this and run as a no labels candidate, I'm going to say this. Then he was never a friend to Democrats in the first place because he knows daggone well that he's only doing this to cause more chaos and more disruption. You know why he's doing this? He's doing this for the same reason that he did what he did when he was in the Senate before we got Warnock and Ossoff. Remember when the headlines for that year and a half were about how Joe Manchin was controlling the Senate. Biden could not do anything. Now the attention is off of him. He wants some more attention. He wants to be able to say, I got Biden in check. So Biden's going to have to bow down to what I want because I'm out. No, guess what? Joe Manchin, nobody's checking for you. Nobody's checking for you. Guess what? Republicans and Democrats. Look, we have bipartisan agreement on this one thing. None of us like Joe Manchin. So I don't know if this is how he wants his story in politics to end, that he went down as a loser. I mean, come on. Jill Stein didn't get the message from 2016 because her behind's running again.
Yeah.
We got Jill Stein, Cornel West, him, Joe Manchin, and Robert Robert F. Kennedy Jr., 4 losers competing to be what? A loser? You're not going to have your Ross Perot moment. Ross Perot got 19% of the vote that was some anomaly. Okay,
that was completely rare. That was
an anomaly. Okay, and part of that we can be the blame of some of our Gen X counterparts who got the right to vote and decided they were going to do some funky stuff. But beyond that, it's just not going to happen. So siphon off votes for Trump, siphon off votes for Democrats. You know what? Go ahead. Go and run. As long as Donald Trump keeps telling his people not to show up to the polls. And that's another reason why I say to attack his fitness, because he's telling his people not to show up to vote in a race that he's running in.
All right. Let's hold right there. Just want to catch up with some more comments. So Michelle, after your high school comment, she had this, and Moses was the class president.
Moses was the class president, and God did the benediction.
Okay. Dr. Tachi says, hello all. What is up, Dr. Tachi, host of Mediascope, the livest online show about media, tech, and pop culture, Wednesdays, 5 p.m. Eastern time on Instagram, then 6 p.m. on YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitch, and other platforms. And also closer date, getting ready for Indie Soup Media launch. I'm coming up in the next few weeks, and this show is going to be one of the shows featured on Indie Soup Media. So we're looking forward to that. And hopefully once in a while, Dr. Tachi will come on and join us. Yay. We'd like that. Michelle says, the South is so red. South Carolina coast, is purple, which I'm hoping grows in the next 6 to 7 years.
Yeah, South Carolina is like looking at a Target bullseye. By the way, I'm still mad at Target for using a Faith Evans song for their Christmas thing. I
heard that ad. Yes.
I'm like, what made you choose that? And amen to the Black person who suggested it. But it's like a bullseye because it's blue smack in the middle where Columbia is, red all the way around it, and then, like she said, purple around that coastline. Doesn't quite go around the other areas towards Aiken, up in the upstate, Spartanburg, and all that stuff. But yeah, it looks like it's like a bullseye. And I think what's going to have to happen is the purple's going to have to. I think the only way to change it over the next 6-7 years is that the purple bleeds into the red as the blue expands out.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Just doing a check-in with everyone. We got 3 more stories to do. Are we still good?
Let's go.
LaLa, you good?
I'm good.
All right. Let's talk about this. This happened a few weeks. Well, recently.
No, this happened this week.
This week, yes. Suspicious letters, particularly laced with fentanyl, sent to election offices being investigated by the federal law enforcement. What?
Okay. So again, we talked about the election earlier on Tuesday. So people were sending fentanyl-laced letters to these the election office and to these election. It's like when the federal government has to tell people, make sure you got Narcan at the polls.
Yes.
How did we get here?
Yeah.
How did we get here? How did we get here? And these people want to talk about getting rid of fentanyl at the border. We need more border security. No, we need more election security, because you can't go vote without somebody throwing some fentanyl up on one of the ballots.
That's right.
It shouldn't be that dangerous to exercise our rights.
Yes.
You know what happened to the fact that your candidate didn't win? Better luck next time. You live and fight another day.
Gone. Those days are gone.
You are killing people because you're not getting your way.
It's fraud. You don't win now. You do everything you can to prove that you did. Then you try to take out the other side. We are beyond dangerous ground. We always say we're beyond it, and I don't put it past us where there's times where we're going to have to look behind our shoulders when we're going to vote. This is a very dangerous time. This past week, I found one of those tests that they used to give to blacks in the South to allow them to vote, and only give them 30 minutes or 10 minutes for a 30-minute test. And the questions were so ridiculous that there was no way you could answer them. And I'm going to put that in the Discord because I think it's very important for you to see, because we truly need to remember the history. These are the modern ways of how they are doing these tests so that they scare us from the polls. We need to be vigilant about it, but we also need to remember the history.
Yeah, and to your point about remembering the history, it's not even a modern way, because remember when Black people try and vote or go register in the 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s, it was okay for the sheriff to come up, and this did happen, and shoot someone right on the town hall lawn as they were trying to go and register. This is basically what we're doing. Remember back in 2018, people were complaining about going to the polls because those open carry states, people were showing up with their AR-15s on their backs. This time they might actually use them.
And not be afraid. They weren't afraid to carry them in the first place, so they're not afraid to use them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So there's that. You can get fentanyl poisoning from going to vote, but the border's the problem. I'm sorry. It seems like the fentanyl is coming from inside the house.
No, thank you.
The Republican House at that. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, the border's not the problem. The problem, like Vivek said, y'all need to worry about what's going on at home. Fix your own house first.
Right. And Michelle says, I missed this news. It wasn't on TikTok.
No, it was breaking news on Wednesday. I saw it on MSNBC, CNN covered it. So, I mean, it like literally broke that they found this. And it's, I mean, when they did the press thing, and the warning was, make sure you've got Narcan. What? Wait, you talking about poll workers who volunteer and aren't getting paid now have to carry Narcan?
Yeah, now they got to go that far. Yeah.
Little old 80-year-old ladies who just check and verify names and addresses have to now give Narcan shots. God,
my stomach just dropped. I mean, that's, we laugh about it, but when you really think about it, this is way too much. Now you got people who ain't gonna want to volunteer. You know.
Okay. So we're gonna move on to our next conversation piece now. And Michelle is all in this week. Michelle, you know what? You need to join the Discord group, Michelle. What's going on here? And also, I'm going to say you're more than happy to come on one of the shows too.
Yeah, we mentioned it. We mentioned it at the beginning because I said, and we're going to talk about it again at the end as a story. I want people to pay attention to what's going on with the New York mayor.
Yeah,
he was in DC this week to talk to and it was. I'm sorry. He says he was there for Veterans Day and all this. No, you were there because you're trying to check about getting your phone back.
All right, we're going to leave that. We're going to leave that there. We're going to move on to our next conversation piece. Alabama mayor commits suicide after conservative website publishes photos of him in women's clothing.
This to me is so sad. I can't remember. Do you all know if he was a Republican or a Democrat? I think he was a Republican, right?
I believe
he was a Republican. And the only reason I'm asking is because the only statement I actually saw came from the Democrats in Alabama.
They shut it down.
They wrote a very nice, heartfelt statement on this. Here's the thing. There's something fundamentally wrong with your Christian fundamentalist crazy in your party when what this man does in his private life, at home, in his bedroom, with his wife, is why he committed suicide, because this paper went in places that they did not need to go. Yes, he was a pastor. Yes, he was mayor. But guess what? He was also human.
Yes.
People need to be, you know what? Stop trying to tell people what to do with their lives. This is the kind of doxing that, because they are a media publication, felt like they could do, felt like they had a right. Like, the people don't need what is it going to help? What is it going to help the people if they know that he wears dresses at home?
Nothing at all. And it's just sickening how everybody wants to be in everybody else's business. And it's always seems to me, it's always the ones who have the most skeletons screaming. Um, the people who do this to me are scum. You don't need to be in somebody else's bedroom. This man wasn't hurting anyone. And it was something that he's doing as an adult. Now, I can guarantee you sitting home looking at some things you probably shouldn't be looking at now on your computer on the side, but you don't want someone talking about you in public about that. I feel for this man. Yes, he's a Republican, but y'all always know. I've always said, I don't care if you're Republican or Democrat. If you're a good person, you're a good person. If you're a bad person, you're a bad person. I don't care what side you're on. This man did not deserve to be outed the way that he was, and this is harmful to his family. His family is going to have to still live with this. Not only the death and how he decided to take his own life, but now the shame of the community that is going to come into this. This doesn't just affect one person from one fabulous 5-second headline. This affects people much deeper than that, and it's disgusting.
Yeah, and it's we've got to stop making it such that, you know what, however people express themselves in terms of their gender, in terms of their sexuality, is up to them. Your Bible should not tell people how they should express themselves. Period. This is something that we're trying to prevent with queer children. Okay, you know what we saw happen, and when you're the parent of one, it really impacts you when you see this kind of stuff happen. This man did not deserve the outing. Not only did they just publish the pictures, they kept going after him. It was article after article after article. That, to me, is not reporting the news. That is harassment.
Yeah,
that is harassment. And if he, okay, so he had some, he had what, Instagram accounts or some kind of accounts where he had his persona. What was he soliciting people? No. Was he harming people? No. He was just posting pictures of himself in his women's clothes, dressing up. Okay, I want to know, where was the harm? Where was the public harm? None. And you know what? If they are going to go this route, and Republicans are going to co-sign on this, it's going to be like those TikTok videos with the lady, surprise, surprise.
Yeah.
Right? And every last one of them, because I have seen quite a few where I have seen these Republicans talking about, this one guy talking about, I do not believe that there should be marriage, sex outside of marriage. You should always wait till you're married. Surprise, surprise, because it was like the headline was him having sex outside his marriage and not with his wife. So come on, all of you, everyone has their own skeletons. How would you like your stuff out there?
That's
How would you like that your stuff? We talk about the doxing, and social media has gotten so toxic. It's why I stay clear of it as much as I can, except to just watch these crazy, funny videos of animals, talking crazy and, all those little memes and things.
Yeah.
But it's seeped into how we do normal things, like reporting the news. Like it's disgusting. And I feel bad that this man felt like he was in such a corner. His only option was to take himself, to unalive himself.
Yes.
Okay. I don't, and we're all going through things. We're all going through some struggle things. And I was listening to this in my car, and people were talking about it, and I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, yeah, I'm going through some really difficult, challenging things right now, but nothing is making me think that I can't get through this tunnel.
Yes.
To the point that I don't want to be here. I just need to get through the tunnel. Hopefully it happens sooner rather than later. This man felt like there was no end.
No hope.
There was no, that the tunnel had an end, but it didn't have an exit. And I really feel we probably disagree on politics, but I feel for him as a human being. I feel for his family. I feel for his children. I feel for his community. Because remember, this paper, what is it, 1816 or 1819, whatever it is, if they came for him, they're going to come for you.
They sure are.
LaLa, anything you want to add?
No, I think I've said it all. My condolences to his family and that community, because don't forget, he was a pastor. So now his church is without a leader as well. And that is traumatic. I mean, they're going to have to cope with this as well. So, despicable.
And just one more thing. And remember, he wasn't hurting anyone. And we're talking about the church. Do you know how many adults have grown up in the church and have been molested by pastors and priests and things? And this man, all he was doing was having happy time with his wife and in his clothes and dressing up and taking pictures. And he got condemned for this, but they don't want to condemn these pastors and these preachers who are taking advantage of women, children, and young men.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Excellent. Good stuff. So Michelle says this is horrific. And she also asks, but is clothes really gender specific? I don't think they are. Dr. Tachi says this is absolutely despicable. She also says, is that what Jesus would do? That site should be sued.
Yes.
And Regina,
and they will hide behind the fact that they are media. They will hide behind the fact that they are media, a news media.
Yeah, Regina says, I agree with Dr. Tachi. Absolutely. Thank you. Good to hear from you, Regina. Good to see that you're in the house. We have reached our final conversation topic, and this may be a two-parter, but let's talk about it. Keith Lee tried to review some Atlanta restaurants on TikTok, and wow, did social media, especially Black social media, get on fire. And Dr. Tachi, who's in the house now, Dr. Tachi, correct me if I'm wrong, but one of the restaurants, did Keith Lee come on, or did one of the restaurants he was critical about come on Mediascope? Put it in the chat. But ladies, what do you think about this story?
Well, there's layers to this. There's lots and lots of layers to this. And coming from our community, you do want to support your own. It's hard for any business to start, especially the food industry. Let's take it. You'll have a place open one weekend and be closed the next weekend because it wasn't ready. Okay. So that's already a hard industry. And it's even harder for people of color to get the resources and the things that they need to open a proper business. And to be able to handle that, especially if it becomes popular overnight. Let's face it, even Sweeties, the big popular restaurant they expanded too fast. They didn't make it in LA. All right. That's an extremely popular restaurant that didn't make it in a major city for various reasons. So I can see both sides of this. And yes, we want to give our community a chance, but our community also needs the resources in order to run these businesses correctly. And how do you not bash them when things aren't exactly up to par? So to me, this is a whirlwind of situations, and you're right, it could be a two-parter, because we have to address each part of this as a different piece of the puzzle for it to be successful. But if the man was being honest about the restaurants, the man was being honest about the restaurants. And that should be our cue to say we need to do better. That's my point about it.
Okay, death threats are unnecessary. The fact that he's getting them really disturbed me, first of all.
Yes.
That said, um, if, like, I agree with everything that LaLa said. If it was another critic that came through, not someone of our own, and evaluated, what would you do? How would you handle that? How would the restaurant handle that? If it was just regular health inspector, how do you handle that when they come in there? You stop, you course correct, and whatever. The onus is then on the business to rise to the occasion and take criticism and improve. Now, for me, I personally don't watch these kinds of videos because I one of the things that I realize is that my tastes are different from somebody else's tastes. So however somebody reviews the food at one restaurant might be different for me because I might not like the particular food or how it's prepared. But we all have access to social media and the internet. If your experience at this restaurant was different from his, don't get on and start threatening him. Share your experience. You all have access to do that. Everybody has the option of doing that. And Candy Burris was very good about how she handled how Old Lady Gang was reviewed. And she said, I'm explaining to you, this is why we don't, because we don't want to overburden our kitchen staff with having to do takeout orders and the orders in the restaurant. We want to give people who actually take the time to come in to see us on the weekend the full attention and the full experience of our business. And she was very kind about it. And she said, I hope that you do come through again and that we can serve you. Now, that said, the other thing I have to say is that we have to be careful with our platforms. When we have a large platform and you reach a lot of people, you should expect some hate, period. For him to be an MMA fighter and to have, I don't want to say he has a thin skin, but he's in a territory where I think that he didn't expect, and anyone who's a journalist understands this. Not everyone's going to like everything that you write. Me personally, I do not go back and read what people say about something I wrote. I wrote it, I said it, I leave it there. People will have their comments and their reactions. But I was always taught that as a journalist, your job is to report the news, not to become the news. And when you become the news, it changes how you end up reporting it. And so I think that he did not do himself any service by going on this apology excursion, this explanation, not apology, but explanation excursion, and everyone that attacked him going back with some video saying such and such, trying to explain his point. No, dude, you said what you said, you leave it there. It's on the restaurant at that point to deal with it. People get bad reviews. Deal with it. When you do that, you only prolong the drama. And so once you have a comeback, somebody else has a comeback. And the door, it just keeps swinging back and forth. It never closes, and we move on to something else. And I understand that one of the, he comes out and he's talking about his social anxiety, and he started doing these things to get over his social anxiety. As someone who experiences very debilitating anxiety at times, that's the reason why I don't read what people write about my stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It would drive me crazy. Okay. So I think that he's got to, if this is the path he's gonna keep going on, he's got to learn to do that. Now, I get that he's young. He's almost half my age. He's young. I get that this is something new for him. So he's not a seasoned reviewer. As someone who's a seasoned reviewer, because if you look at my bio, I had my first one when I was 15. You do your review, you leave it there, and you move on to the next one. Your job is not to come back and explain why you reviewed what you reviewed. People are supposed to take your review and make a decision for themselves whether or not they are going to believe it or they're not going to believe it. They're going to try this themselves or they're not going to try it themselves. Your job is not to explain why you reviewed something the way that you did. If you did your review and you explained in your review that's why you gave them this review, you owe no other explanation, period.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
All right. I'm gonna come in with one or two comments after, because I don't comment much, but I have one or two things I want to add on here. So let's go. Dr. Tachi says, I recall she's probably saying Gordon Ramsay goes to restaurants all the time and says some of the most outlandish things, and nobody
And has
says
a whole
anything.
career for it.
Yep. She also says, I think that Black businesses in general sometimes feel they should get a Black pass that absorbs them of reproach or criticism.
One thing before you go to the next comment, I get that, Dr. Tachi. I agree with that. But, Chris Rock did this interview with Prince, and they were having this conversation about, a black person does one thing wrong. Everything else they do before that can be great. Everything else they do after that can be great, but they're always judged by that one misstep. And Chris Rock said in this interview, he said, I could do one bad movie, Pootie Tang. I'm just throwing one out there. And people will never forget that one movie. I haven't forgotten Pootie Tang or Soul Plane. And people will never forget those bad movies, even if he did bad things. To this day, Jamie Foxx won an Academy Award for Ray. He does some great movies. I still can't get over Booty Call from the 1990s. Now, let me tell you, the thing of it is that this is the thing for Black people, right? Is that there's that. And when I also talk about accountability with our platforms, remember, the internet is forever. So even if these people do course correct and do improve, that bad review in video is going to live on, and with it being such a highly rated thing, whenever their name comes up in a Google search, it will be one of the top things that goes to it, even 10 years from now, if they've done extraordinary business and major improvements since whole new management. That thing, because it had X number of views, and he used the right keywords in his alt text at the back end of his video, is going to be the first thing that surfaces. So you can do lasting damage, even if that is not your intent, and even if the restaurant does take the criticism well and does improve. So we do have to be a little bit more responsible about that. But I do get what she means about the Black Pass.
All right, just want to continue on. Michelle says Keith Lee only went to restaurants who asked him to come and eat. Also says Keith literally tells people his taste may not be your taste, so try the restaurants anyways. He was trying to trying to rein his fans not to bash these restaurants or their employees.
And see, that's the other part too. When I say, the explanation part that kept going on, and he was trying to rein in his fans and going on and on about that. That is also part of why I feel that he didn't need to go there, because it just gave additional more fuel to the fire. Yeah, it just, because think about it, it's like when we talk about politics, it's like the more you try to rein Donald Trump in, the more people like him, the more explanation. It just doesn't work. It's probably just easier to say, I said what I said. Next review. If this was the case and he wanted people to stop and to move on to the next thing, the smarter thing would have been to do a new review, put out a new review, and have people looking at that and focus on that. Your fans focus on the new stuff. But that's just the PR person in me.
All right. Dr. Tachi, and she corrected the spelling of your name in a later post. Said, that's a great point, Aisha. I think we need to remember that he is not a trained journalist, but a citizen journalist. At this, he probably should get some training to help.
And that's a good point, because it brings back to the restaurants. Both the restaurants, they need additional training in terms of how to do customer service and manage their stuff, and proper etiquette and things. And people, if you're going to do these videos and things and try and get all these likes and all this attention, you've got to have the training to do it too. So or how to handle it.
Michelle says, but Ocho need not speak.
Agreed.
And Dr. Tachi corrected with the spelling, and she goes, this voice type is messing up.
Yeah, no, whenever you say my name in voice type, it does the AYESHA.
And then Shell says, you're absolutely correct, Aisha. So we're going to end our conversation, but I'm going to just add in a few points. And if either LaLa or Aisha want to add in, we'll close it down for this conversation. First of all, not every Black business has bad customer service. And I think some people, but there are some that do. Mm-hmm. Let's put it out there. But another point I want to add, when you're in business and you are Black, I say you've got the left-right hook. The right hook is a lot of white people don't support you. And the left hook is a lot of Black people, black and white, a lot of Black people won't support you. Sorry. Mm-hmm. So it's a double entendre. Interesting point. I don't know who said it, but what would have happened, I think Aisha may say, if it was a white critic that would have criticized a Black restaurant, would we have been as vocal, or would there have been as much vocality social media wise if it would have been, and I know Gordon Ramsay has done on his latest Kitchen Nightmares, which is this past week, was a Black restaurant. I'd be very interesting to see if anyone pushed back on Gordon Ramsay on that.
Well, no, you know why? But and this is the other side of it too, and this is why I say that he has to take some accountability as well as the restaurant. The restaurant needs to take all their accountability. I lived in Atlanta, so I dined in Atlanta. I dined at Atlanta restaurants, and you know what? It's not any. And people are, again, the bedwetting. Stop it. The Atlanta businesses and restaurants and stuff are no different than any other major metropolitan area. You're going to have your bad ones. You're going to have your good ones. He went on a culinary tour of Atlanta. He was bound to run into a bad one, period. But apart from that, you know, the thing with Gordon Ramsay is that Gordon Ramsay did do this with the Black restaurant, but guess what? His audience was not Black. This guy, his primary audience is Black. And so there is a fundamental difference. Okay, so this is your audience. And so your audience is going to feel some kind of way about it. But again, not everyone's going to like everything. You're going to get bad reviews.
Sure.
People need to grow up. I'm sorry, a bad review for a restaurant is not worth sending someone a death threat. That is crazy, insane, deranged, and just fundamentally stupid, because your IP address can be tracked back to you.
Well, it just, and then when you see options like that, it leads to trauma. Mm-hmm. And I think another challenge that we as Black people have who run our own business, I say one of our biggest challenges is access to capital.
Right.
Which is a whole other conversation, right? Like, look at like people like Sam Bankman-Fried. How many Black people would get the access of capital that he got? Then I don't know, there's a lady who just went to jail. I can't remember her name. She had
Keisha Williams, because I just watched it on American Greed before the show started.
But there was a lady who had some sort of product. She's fairly young, and she got piles and piles of money for a concept that never really existed. Can't remember her name.
Elizabeth, what's her name? The lady with the pricking the finger thing.
Yeah. So, but still no excuse for bad customers. But there are some barriers that many Black people who are in business have to deal with that many white people don't even know about or never have to deal with. So we'll just leave it at that. So we are finito. So before we let the ladies exit, are there any stories we should be keeping an eye on over the next week?
Eric Adams.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, you go first, Aisha. You go first.
Eric Adams. Just watch it. New York City mayor.
We're definitely watching that. But I am also keeping my eye on the situation with banks. There are a lot of shenanigans going on with these banks that are not putting in deposits correctly or allowing people to withdraw their monies. The biggest thing today was Wells Fargo is refusing to give people back some of their monies because
you're kidding.
No, and I'm not surprised because it's Wells Fargo. That I'm sorry, I am not a fan of Wells Fargo. Never have been. I've seen too many things with them that would never allow me. I would never bank with them. So I'm going to be keeping my eye on that.
Oh, there's one more thing that I think everybody should keep their eye on, and I was listening to it again. If you get a chance, listen to Sirius XM Urban News. It's a very good channel. They talk about issues that are important to Black people. But the Supreme Court issue about whether or not a person who has committed domestic violence should have access to guns.
Yes, to guns. Yes,
because
yes. I heard of.
Because one of the arguments that they're trying to make is that, well, we've used, rather than just saying, no, it's a crime, he shouldn't have a gun because it's a crime and this guy was a bad person in the first place. What they went and they said was that, well, because there have been no gun laws since 1791 or whatever. Well, we've had this restriction before where we denied people access to guns, slaves, Native Americans, and it was argued in court. And so if they win on that, what they can then do, because remember, Supreme Court, it sets precedent. It means that if you are Black and you want to get a gun, you can be denied because the government has denied in the past the access, and they've never really restored that.
Yeah, I listened to that story this week on NPR radio, and it's gonna be very, very, very interesting about that story. So before we shut it down, we got one more comment, then we're gonna get the ladies. Oh, why am I not surprised? This is the last comment. Jen says, fabulous show as always. There you go. Thank you, Jen. There's still a spot open for you whenever you're ready to come on. And you too, Michelle, and you too, Dr. Tachi. We need you to come on and hang out with us, family. Whatever you got, and whenever you got some time. So before we call it a show, how do we get in contact with LaLa?
Hello, my lovely people. You can reach me at Realty Goddess on all platforms.
Fantastic. And next up, there you go.
Yeah, you can find me on Instagram, but the better place is our Discord channel.
There you go. Done deal. Very nice. And myself, as I come on the screen here, the drvibeshow.com website, email dr.vibe at the drvibeshow.com, YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, The Dr. Vibe Show, X at the drvibeshow.com, and also at the Dr. Vibe Show on the gram, as they call it. So before we call it a day, we got a few last things. As always, let me just pull it up here. Subscribe to the Dr. Vibe Show on LinkedIn, YouTube, and the notification button. Hit that notification button. Also follow the Dr. Vibe Show on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram. Please, if you're up to it, if you're interested, advertise your business, product, or service on any of the platforms I host. Email me dr.vibe at the drvibeshow.com. And hey, usually I say it the most, but Aisha said it more than I did. Join the Discord. Join the Discord group. That was good dinner. By the way, it was a good dinner. I had keeping up my good eating habits. I had a bean and rice burrito with green peppers. It was very nice, very filling. So join the Primetime Saturday with Aisha and LaLa Discord group. Email me dr.vibe at the drvibeshow.com. Very, very active. Aisha and LaLa and Jen are on fire. So I'm expecting everyone else to start kicking it up a notch, as Mr. Emma Lagasse would say. So let's finish off with this. Live your life as a dream. If you can dream it, you can make it. Sometimes you have to get small to get stronger. Block assumptions and aim bigger, aim better, aim higher, aim wider. Love, faith, and respect. Remember to give yourselves grace and don't just manage your time, manage your energy. We'll see you in Discord, and we'll see you next week. God bless. Peace to all. Keep the faith and walk good.